Okay. Okay, so we can start with the defense of the thesis of Domènec Ruiz Balet. The title is Some Control Aspects in Mathematical Biology and Deep Learning. So you can start.
Hello everyone, thank you for attending to my defense. So I am Domènec Ruiz. I am a PhD student of Enrique Zazua, and I have been doing my thesis in Universidad Autónoma de Madrid under the ERC of Enrique Zazua. But also this ERC was in two places, like in Madrid and also in Bilbao, in the chair of computational mathematics. And now I'm a researcher in Imperial College. So my thesis will be split in three parts. I will first speak about constraint control of reaction diffusion equations. Later, I will speak about mathematical optimization in mathematical ecology. And later, I will speak about some control aspects in deep learning. So let's start for the first part. So what is control theory? So we could define control theory as the study of the inputs into a dynamical system, so that the dynamical system has the desired property that we want. So let us consider, for example, this differential equation, where here we have a certain input, we have a certain influence. So, and this idea of interacting with dynamical system has been omnipresent in human history. So in this example here, this is the centrifugal governor. So this was developed for stabilizing the pressure of steam machines. So in the Industrial Revolution, there were these steam machines that the pressure could go very high and they could explode. So in this centrifugal governor has two balls. When the pressure goes up, these balls rotate more and more. And at a certain point, they open a piston and liberate steam. And in that way, they can the pressure of the steam machine is stabilized. So this type of input, though, it's in a feedback manner. So the input depends on the state itself. So it depends on the pressure itself. So, however, here the properties that we will be looking for are for the controllability properties. So what is the controllability? So controllability, roughly speaking, is to develop an input so that I can go from a point A to point B. So here in this example, we have like the Eagle module when in the Apollo 11 mission, when this module has to depart from the moon and arrive to the module that was orbiting the moon. So you have 2 points, and you have a time, and you have to develop a way to interact with the system. So with the engine, to arrive from the point A to point B. So and the problem is to find this function here. So, however, in the context I will be considering controllability is in reaction diffusion equations. Reaction diffusion equations are omnipresent in mathematical biology. So here we can see an example in which this is the advance of the bubonic death, so the Black Death. Here, like for the years, how the disease was spreading throughout Europe. So, and here at the beginning of the last century, there was these developments of finding certain specific solutions of these reaction diffusion equations that would model invasion fronts. This also has this type of models have had a lot of attention in the 70s, for instance, for Magleo. So what is the control problem we will be dealing with is this boundary control problem. So we are given a bounded domain. So we are giving this a boundary condition which we are free to choose. So this boundary condition is our control. So and we will in this reaction diffusion equation, our f is bistable. So this is for example, this some linearity like this, which is negative from 0 to until a certain point here in the middle theta, and positive from theta afterwards. So if we are now, for a moment, we omit the diffusion, and we consider the one-dimensional dynamical system, what is this dynamical system doing? So if your initial condition is below theta, you will go to 0, and if you're starting above theta, you will go to 1. So that's and this 0 and 1 are stable. That's why this nonlinearity is called bistable. So, and this type of models model like temperature, concentrations, proportions, which are quantities that by nature are either positive or between 0 and 1. So our problem would be to, how can we control the system for, let's say, any initial data between 0 and 1 to a specific target, the homogeneous steady state theta, while prescribing the bound. So we want the whole trajectory to be between 0 and 1. So why we are considering this particular steady state theta? So one of the main mathematical thing is that this steady state is an interior steady state that can be unstable. So as I said before, if this diffusion is very small, the governing part, what would dominate is this nonlinearity, which as I said, this theta is unstable. So our goal is to control to a certain configuration that might be unstable. And also from the applied side, this comes from when we started to do this research, when José Ramón Uriarte was studying evolution gains in languages. So this comes from models in which when two people meet, which language do they have to choose? Is a sort of coordination game in which there is an equilibria here, which is this theta, which is unstable. So, and our goal was also motivation to understand this controllability to these unstable equilibriums. So, what are the main challenges here? So, the controllability of reaction diffusion equations has been back from the 90s and 2000s. So, but the constraints were not in place for the controllability problem. So, and here the new challenges we will address are essentially constraint violations and fundamental obstructions. So, starting with fundamental obstructions, we'll have barriers. So, what is a barrier? A barrier is a solution of this elliptic problem here. So, we have a boundary condition 0, and we are looking for a solution which is between 0 and 1. So, whenever this solution exists, so whenever our initial data is above this solution, we will always be above it. This is basically the comparison principle. So the best control we could do, the lowest control we can take is 0. So taking 0 control, we will be always above this barrier here. So and how can we understand the existence of these barriers? So this will depend critically on the diffusivity parameter mu. So when mu is very small, there will exist no barrier. And one can see this because the associated energy functional for this elliptic equation is this functional here, where the convex part dominates when mu is very big. So as we see here in this picture, when mu is relatively big, there is only one minimizer, which is the 0, 1. However, when mu increases, the other critical points and the global minimizer can even change. So these other critical points that appear will be barriers for equations, and we cannot do anything about that. So when the diffusivity would be very small, if we start from initial data that is very big, we will not be able to cross this barrier, and we will not be able to arrive near 0. Neither we will be able to arrive near theta. Why? This is because whenever this solution exists, there is a condition. We have to have that the maximum of this solution is above the parameter theta. So this barrier not only is preventing us to arrive near 0, but also it's preventing us to arrive near theta. And the other main obstacle, the main thing we have to overcome are constraint violations. So if now I run a simulation in which I compute a control for this equation without prescribing anything, what I would observe is that I would violate the constraints, and typically there will be big oscillations on the control. So we have to also overpass this. So how can we guarantee this controllability with this without these big oscillations? And that's where the staircase method comes into place. So the fundamental idea of this staircase method is we're given two steady states, and we have connected path of steady states from one steady state to another, as this picture portrays here. So this is our initial data, this is our target, and we assume that there is a continuous path of steady states going from one to another. Then what this theorem tells us is that we can control sequentially along this path of steady states so that our whole trajectory is in a tubular neighborhood of this path, and we will not violate the constraints. Of course, this path has to be admissible, so we have to develop a path which, on the whole path, all the constraints are satisfied. So, but this here has one strong assumption, which is the existence of a path. So, how can this exist? How can this path be constructed? The way that can be constructed is using the phase plane. So this is an equation, an elliptic equation in one dimension, and here we have the two boundary conditions that are our controls. So we are free to choose these boundary conditions. We have to design a way of moving these boundary conditions to have connected paths of steady states. So, and a way to do this is to represent this elliptic equation as a dynamical system here. Okay, so when in this dynamical system, again, if we plot the phase portrait of this, we'll have this picture here, where the steady state theta, which is a constant, it's this center point here, is the point theta 0. In the steady state 1 would be this point 1, 0, and the steady state constant steady state 0 is this point here. So, and what we can do with that is essentially take profit of the continuity with respect to the initial data of the ODE system. So we will read the boundary conditions at one side, the Dirichlet and Neumann. We will solve the ODE, and since we have the continuity with respect to the initial data, we will have the continuity of this path. But moreover, we need another issue. We also have to guarantee that the constraints are satisfied. And for that, one can make use of an invariant region. An invariant region in the dynamical system is a region in the phase space in which if you start in that region, you are never going to get out of this region. And in this system, there is an invariant region, which is this homoclinic orbit that goes out from 0 and returns back to 0. This homoclinic orbit is also an analytic solution for the problem before, which is this is the one portrayed here in red. I don't finish it because it should be an elliptic solution in the whole real line. So this solution in the whole real line is this curve right here, which is an invariant region. By the uniqueness of the ODE, you cannot go out if you start from here inside. So now this allows us to generate paths. So if we consider initial conditions for the ODE to be, for example, this S is the parameter of the path S theta. So when S is 0, we're at 0. When S is 1, we're at theta. So, and we have a unique solution of that. So, and when we're solving the ODE, so we are solving from here, we arrive to a certain point here, and then we read out the condition that we will need at the other hand. So we start with A0. So this A0 would be this S theta here. The Neumann condition, we impose it. And now we solve the ODE, and with these points we obtain here, it will be the other condition here, the condition at the other side. So how can we do this in several dimensions? So for doing this in several dimensions, what we can do is, for example, extend the path extend the domain in a ball. So we're taking profit of the fact that we have control in the whole boundary to essentially go into a ball and construct the path there. So the difference here is that the parameter we are varying is not in a boundary condition, but is the center of the ball. So we are moving the center of the ball, which will have this, the elliptic solution will have this condition here, the derivative will be 0, and we'll go from 0 to theta. So, and what we'll have, so we have that the real solutions dissipate. So there is also an invariant region, and we can construct a path from 0 to theta, and with that we have that also, since this is an invariant region, this path exists regardless of mu. So remember that before I was saying that for mu small there would be a barrier, and if we start from an initial data it's above the barrier, we cannot go to theta. This is still true, but the thing is that you can always go from a steady state that's near 0 to theta. So now the strategy is composed in two parts. So first, to be able to arrive near to an element of the path, and then follow the path until theta. So, but this first part of arriving to an element of the path would be prohibited if we start from above the barrier. So, and for that makes sense to define the basing of attraction of 0. So the basing of attraction of 0 is basically I'm taking the initial data in the admissible class, and I'm computing the omega limit with the 0 boundary condition here. So if this omega limit is the steady state 0, I'm saying that this element is in the basing of attraction of 0. So, and essentially what is happening here is that to be controllable to theta is equivalent to be in the basing of attraction of 0. So why is that? So we have clear for the strategy that if we are in the basing of attraction of 0, we arrive near 0, we arrive to an element of the path, and we then follow the staircase method, and we are controlled to theta. And on the other hand, if we are controllable to theta, we are controllable to theta with a strategy that is always positive between 0 and 1. So now, if after controlling to theta, we set boundary condition 0, from theta, you will go to 0 asymptotically. And this strategy is always positive. So this strategy will be above of this problem here. So, and since with taking the strategy of controlling first to theta and then putting 0, you are going to 0, you will be also in the basing of attraction of 0 if you are in the control of the theta. So, some important remarks here. So we have been using path of steady states, but a path of steady states cannot exist. Sometimes cannot exist. You are given two steady states and maybe there is no path. But this does not mean that you cannot control from one steady state to another. So if a path exists, you have controllability from one element to another and in the other way around. But if a path does not exist, you can still have some controllability from one to another, but by means of a dynamic movement instead of this quasi-static deformation. So now here I'm going to speak about another model, which is called a gem flow model. This model comes from biology. Basically, it's modeling to when you have a population with distinct traits. So here we have two populations of beetles, like these ones that are greens and the other ones that are brown. And now these beetles are interchanging. So one goes from one community to another, and so on. And this, we can model the whole population of beetles with this reaction diffusion equation, with this n, with n is the total number of beetles we have. And then U is the proportion of beetles that are green or brown. And this U also has this sees this distribution through this drift effect. So, and this system is hierarchical. So this equation is not depending on U. So the n is not depending on U, but U depends on n. So if now we assume that our n has converged to a steady state, essentially what it boils down is to analyze this equation here. So and now and when we study the control of the boundary control of this equation with this heterogeneity here, some interesting new things happen. So first I said that it was always possible to go from the steady state 0 to the steady state theta, but when we are studying this model, one of the things that it can be observed, I'm not going to explain everything, but I will mainly illustrate it with this simulation here. So here it's basically a simulation in which I put the initial data which it's 0, and my target is theta, and I'm computing the minimal control time. So what is the minimal time I need from going from 0 to theta? So when this parameter 1 over sigma is zero, I can do it. So we are like in the case we were speaking before, but when this parameter is growing in this case here, we'll observe that the controllability time blows up. What is happening here? So here in that case here we have that the population is like a Gaussian. So we have in a forest, there is a lake in the middle of the forest, a lot of mosquitoes there, concentrated, and we're trying to control from the boundary the proportion of infected mosquitoes. But since there is this Gaussian here, this creates in our equation some drift, and this drift actually is pushing towards the boundary. So we're controlling through the boundary, but we have a drift that is pushing against the control. So the control effect is diminished, and this creates that for certain parameters there is a non-trivial solution with boundary values 1 blocking us from going from 0 to theta. In the other case, if instead of having a Gaussian, we have this a well here, the effect from the boundary is enhanced, so our control effect is enhanced. And what we observe essentially is that the control times go to 0. So some remarks and perspectives. So far I have been speaking about scalar reaction diffusion equations, but one natural way to extend all of these would be to go to systems, where we would have several challenges. So first is that the technical thing that if we want to go for constructing paths of steady states, we will have to consider the phase plane in 4D. Trajectories will be still 1D, but we'll need to find variant regions in 3D if we want to construct it in that way. Also, comparison principles will not apply in the same way. Also, another thing is to consider maybe nonlinear diffusion, so like porous media. But then also, when we consider the OD system, we can have degeneracy. We have degeneracy at 0, so the OD might not be even well posed. And also non-local equations, where essentially how these dynamical system ideas might not work because of the non-locality of the diffusion, but also even more and more to the core, non-autonomous systems. So if we just consider this equation here, where this diffusivity is changing on time, so that it would be equivalent like if a domain is growing. So we are trying, it would be not exactly like this, but it's capturing like when the domain is essentially growing and where to control from the boundary. What is happening here is like this equation only has 3 constant steady states, which is 0, theta, 1, but does not have any path in the middle because of this varying time diffusion. And just running simulation, again, trying to run a simulation in which you try to go from 0 to theta, you see that if I put a decaying diffusion with minus 2.5, I can do this process well. However, if I try to do this with a slightly higher exponent, I cannot do it. This is was a thing that before was possible to do, always to go to 0 to theta, but now it's not. And here, the core thing is that there is an obstruction which that it's not a steady state. An obstruction would be non-autonomous. Also, another thing here to mention is that the construction of paths has been somehow very explicit, and this is a con for the theory, because if we have to make a path handmade all the time, we should also try to explore if there is ways to guarantee existence of paths without constructing them. One of the conjectures I have is that so we have seen that in the case of the gem flow, there is an obstruction for going to 1. There are also obstructions for going to 0 for these barriers, but also we have this equivalence for controllability with the basins of attraction. So one natural conjecture is to think if we have 2 steady states that belong to the same basins of attractions, it automatically implies that there exists a path between them. So this I have not managed to prove it, but maybe the idea is to think if can I prove like there is some sort of triangles or strategy. So maybe can I go ensure that these 2 paths, if I start to move the boundary conditions, will cross eventually to some point, which is the same because of their belonging to the basin of attractions. This maybe would be an angle of attack for addressing this problem. But if this is proved, this also enables us to basically consider problems when we're controlling a part of the boundary, because we only have to check two conditions. Are you going to 0 and are you going to 1? And that enables us to basically not constructing the path by hand. So now moving to the second part, which is optimization in mathematical ecology. In the year 2020, there have been a lot of wildfires in the world. So there was in the Amazon, there was also in Siberia, Indonesia, and also in Australia. And what happened also in Australia is that unfortunately, a lot of animals died, but some survived these wildfires. But then there was nothing to eat. So there was a campaign there where essentially the firefighters were going with helicopters around the forest, dropping up carrots and potatoes for the animals to have something to eat to survive until maybe some other plants will eventually grow. So this can also be in the core of the mathematical problem we'll be discussing, which is which is this one here. So basically what we want to do is maximize the population given a limited amount of resources. So the same problem of the mentioned before. So what we have is, we have an equation, which is with a Fisher-Kaplan type nonlinearity. This is monostable. It's not like the other times I was speaking that's bistable. So this is, so first it's positive, and then it has a 0 when at 10. So, and our class of resources is the following. So we can only put a finite amount of resources at each point, and the total amount of resources is bound. So, and what we know from this model is that the maximizers are bang from this article here. And what does it mean to be bang? So bang essentially means to be either 0 or kappa. In that case, I put here 1. To be only or either 0 or you have only two values, like the constant either kappa or 0. And what we want to understand is the relationship between the diffusivity mu and the optimal resource distribution. And what is the relevance of this diffusivity mu also, which also can be understood as considering domains bigger and bigger and bigger. Like if the forest of it has been burned is bigger and bigger, or if the forest is small. So how this mu relates with some properties of the optimal resource distribution. So what we have here is that the optimal resource distribution, as mu goes to 0, has the VV norm has to blow up. Since our function is bang, and our limit and our resources are limited, we'll have that essentially what is blowing up is the perimeter, which is a fragmentation property. So we would have that all the time. The resources are more and more spread. So I'm going to spread a bit some ideas in the proof. So the proof would be to see first, like we consider like this here is a function which is bang. So this takes values 1. This takes value 0. So the observation is the following: if I periodize this function, and then to a bigger domain, so I periodize it here and also the state, so the control in the state, and then I rescale it back. I obtain that I have the same population, but with a smaller diffusivity because of the change of variables. So the same population from one diffusivity is the same from the one below. Well, I mean this with a changed m. And you can also repeat this process, so on. And what this allows you to basically prove a lower bound for the maximum population with this periodization. And on the other hand, like if you assume that the maximizers are uniformly bounded in VV, you can prove an upper bound, and you reach a contradiction since that this upper bound is lower than this other lower bound. So the maximizers have to the perimeter have to blow up. And this is what you observe, like also numerically. So this is here it doesn't seem that there is any periodic structure. So here we see that the mu is decreasing every time the perimeter of this structure is blowing up. So here are some perspectives that would be also nice to understand is there a limit profile for mu going to 0, at least up to some sequences, not maybe at a continuous, but if I take some sequences, can it be proven that this has some limited structure, or even if there is a limited structure, is there some fractal structure? So for proving this, maybe it would be useful to basically find a sort of recurrence between optimizers of different diffusivities. So thinking a bit how the Sierpinski triangle is built, of having a triangle and also removing a part, also in the triangle domain, you remove another part, you build a fractal like the Sierpinski triangle. So if there would be some sort of recurrence relationship between optimizers of different mu's, this might give rise of an opportunity of proving a fractal structure. Okay, so and finally, I'm going for the last part, which is some control science in machine learning. So our problem here would be motivated by classifying pictures. So here we have different pictures. Some are pictures of dogs, and some other pictures are not dogs. And our goal would be to find a way to basically distinguish among the pictures that are dogs and the pictures that are not dogs. So how can we formalize this problem? So basically, we can work in the thing that we have in the space of pixels. So we have here like every pixel is dimension, and we have a subset, which is as a subset of the pictures of the dogs. So which you choose a representation of the picture as a vector in RD, and we consider the subset of the pictures of the dogs. And now we are given samples of this characteristic function. So we are given a picture, and we know if either it's a dog or it's not a dog. And now what we want to do is to find a way to approximate this function here with given the samples of it. And the approach would be to consider a large family of functions and find among the best possible function in this family of functions. And this family of functions will be neural networks. Here I'm going to in a very specific case, which are neural ODs. Neural ODs are these type of OD systems like this that come from seeing resonance in a continuous layer link. So here we would have a picture in xk0 that then we're applying some operations here. We apply a nonlinearity, a transformation, and we get a transformation of it. And we apply this sequentially. So this would be a resonant architecture. If now we understand this as a derivative, a time derivative, so we have infinitely many layers, we can consider this OD here. So here this activation function, I might not state it later on, but we will consider this to be a ReLU. So something that is 0 in one part and positive and linear at the positive numbers. And this here A is a matrix, B would be a vector, and sigma is the component ways application of this activation function here. And W is also a matrix. So what the angle of attack of this problem will be to look at it as a simultaneous control problem. So we're having this W, A, and B that we have to find, but what we want to do is a simultaneous control problem. So before I explain what a controllability problem was, so we want to have a origin point, a target point, and we want to find a function. So that the triangle system from one point A to point B. But now here we'll have something more challenging, which is a simultaneous controllability problem. So we want to find, we are given two initial datas, we're given two target datas, and we want to find the same function that derives a same function that applied to one system and also the other system with different initial and target data, so that's the final time both targets we arrive to both targets. So obviously this is more challenging. So this is what we have been doing here. So now imagine that in the phase plane, instead of going with one point, moving it all the way and controlling to a target, we want a same function that is moving all the points so that they go to the respective targets. So and what we're doing, so first here we will make this classification problem more. We'll cast this classification problem in a specific case. So we'll think we have some points which have different classes. So here we have blue, red, and green, and we have three, and we divide our Euclidean space in bands. So we have our Euclidean space. We divide it in several subsets, and then I want to find a strategy that brings each point to each set. So I'm not bringing each point specifically to a target, but rather to a set. And this is what we would be trying to do. However, this is not how people do in the practice that things are done. Normally things are done through optimization. So you have some controls, you write an algorithm, an optimization algorithm, and you find the controls here. We will construct something by hand that would not have to be, it has to be the same than the optimal thing or the more, let's say that, no, it not has to be the thing that is commonly used. So, yes. So once we have found this flow, so this, when we find this control that will drive us each point to each class, we'll have find this control is common for all for every point. So now, if we have a new point that we don't know which class it is, we will solve just the equation with the controls we have found, and this point will arrive somewhere. So maybe in this class or in this other, and then we will assign the category of this niche point with the solution of the ODE with the controls we have found with the data we had. Okay, so how we will do this? So we will exploit the fact that the nonlinearity is 0 in one part and it's linear in the other. So if I take specific structures in this configuration here, and I consider here a hyperplane. So this application of sigma to this thing here would be like asking if you are above or below a hyperplane. So since the value is 0 when you are negative, you will have a region in the phase plane which is not moving, and we will have some evolution of the flow in the other side. But then with the W, we can orient the flow as to the direction we want. So in particular, what we can do is essentially freeze a part of the phase plane, then expand. On the other hand, we can expand, we can compress, we can translate, while keeping one part not moving. And this is key for actually controlling simultaneously 2 points. So let us go into an insight of the proof. So let's say we will work in induction. So we have done away, we have classified all the points well except one. So each point is in their targets, in their target set, except this one point here. So how can we, if we are able to do the process for this point here, we would be able to repeat so on and so forth, and we will be able to proceed by induction. So the way to do it is like first, we select a hyperplane which is slightly above this point, and we push, and we select so we freeze this part is frozen, and we select a flow that is pushing all these points to the left. So in that way, we have we arrive to some configuration like this. We apply the same with a hyperplane that is slightly below, and we have all the points that are here at the left, and this point now is isolated. So now we can select a hyperplane here, so that we freeze all these points, and we are moving this point alone. And this allows us to shift this point to its corresponding class. Okay, so this is essentially the theorem. So we can with the hypothesis that makes a lot of sense that we have that the points that in our points we have that xi's are different, so we don't have two images of the same dog, because in fact this is dog and this is not a dog with the same image. So this makes a lot of sense. we have this result where phi of t is the solution of the ODE with respect to these flows. And us applying these techniques, like I'll be elaborating a bit more, what we can do is basically prove a simultaneous controllability result. So prescribing exactly as targets, as many targets that we want, we have to put that they are distinct. Then you can find a controller strategy that brings every point to their target. The targets have to be distinct because we are working in an ODE. So if you have two different points that have to arrive to the same target with the same controls, we're facing the uniqueness of the ODE. So this is not possible to do. So this is why these distinct points have to be there. Okay, so now I'm moving on. How can we interpret this at the level of transport equations? So what we have been doing is we have been controlling points with the same controls. So every point we have controlling points in the phase plane with the same controls. So this, we can read this as the characteristics of a transport equation. So, and what we can do is basically try to use these strategies to understand some controllability of these equations where now there's this transport equation where the controls are also here. So, but in what sense are we going to understand this controllability? So then we'll understand it with the Wasserstein distance. So essentially, Wasserstein distance we have given two probability measures. You take a test function, which is with the Lipschitz constant less or equal to 1, and you are computing the supremum. So and this will give you the Wasserstein distance. So, but why are we considering this distance instead of more other classical distances? So the thing is because we want to inherit what we have seen in the phase plane. In the phase plane, we have been acting points one. We have been looking at Euclidean distances. I put the plane here. I move this until there. So, what happens if we consider an LP norm, and we don't see the distances of the supports. So in the sense that if I consider these two characteristic functions, so here the area of each function is 1/2. So we have that the LP norm of the distance of these two functions is 1, and that is just a shift of this function here. I just put this function here closer to that, but the supports are still disjoint. We have also that the LP distance is 1. So we are not seeing the distances of the support, whereas when we are considering the Wasserstein distance, we are seeing this. As an example, we can take two Diracs. So Dirac located at x1 and x2, and another Dirac at x2, and then the Wasserstein distance between these two is essentially the distance, the Euclidean distance, which is what we knew how to do. So we'll go here back. We see that if you put here two Diracs, and you are taking the supremum, you would essentially obtain since the Lipschitz constant is less or equal to 1, you would obtain the distances of the supports. So this is what enables us to state this theorem. So if we are considering a target, which is a combination of Dirac measures with masses that are all positive, and these Dirac measures are located somewhere in the space, we are actually restricting that the mass of the target is the same mass than the initial data. This is because we are considering an equation that preserves the mass. So we are given a certain mass, we are going to move this mass, but we cannot remove or add mass. So once we are having this, we can have an approximate controllability result for this equation. And the proof is very similar to the strategy before. So we are having an initial mass, which is spread out until around here, and we have our targets, which are Dirac masses located around here. So essentially, we'll consider a cut. We will cut this mass in several pieces. We'll consider like this mass has the same mass than the Dirac mass here. We will use the compressive flow to compress this, and then we will move it with as described before to the point there. And this for every mass. So this cannot be done exactly because we have for the same thing of the continuities. So that when we'll apply the flows, this potato will still be somehow deformed everywhere, but they will have the mass concentrated at these points here. And finally, I'm going to give some perspectives of this. So first would be, so we have been also working in the same dimension. So we're having an initial data in RD, we're in the Euclidean space in RD, moving the things there. But how could we benefit if we increase our dimension? So instead of remaining in dimension D, we go, for instance, to 2D. So can the strategies be simpler? Can we also maybe have the norms of the controls lower? And this is something that also could be studied. Another thing is that typical neural networks, sometimes they vary dimension through layers, which this model doesn't see. So the dimension of the is always the same. It's so maybe some modeling can be used to also try to have a continuous representation of layers with varying dimension, and try to investigate the same properties on that. And also, finally, so could we improve the result of the transport equation instead of working to the Wassestein distance in another type of distance? So, and for maybe also using this for better properties of the probability density, to maybe go like with the persistent distance, what we can do is actually controlling the expectance, but can we do more? And this has been all. Thank you everyone for your attention. And
okay, so thank you very much for your presentation. We start with questions.
Y lo que voy a hacer, si te parece, pongo...
Yo me he conectado aquí.
Ah, vale, no, pero si queremos verles, te pregunto por si lo pongo ahí, que se vea en la pantalla
Vale,
ellos.
vale.
O sea, es una posibilidad, si queremos. Y lo que tengo es que lo veis. Y para después, si quieren preguntar a alguien, si tienen chat en el... Hay un chat aquí.
Sí,
para
lo he
los
visto
doctores,
también. Sí, que pueden
si
preguntar ahí.
quieren preguntar, que lo pongan ahí.
Vale,
si alguien
perfecto.
quiere preguntar,
Perfecto.
eso lo tenemos fuerte. Te voy a poner aquí el... Tendrás que cambiar de ventana si hace falta para si quieres mostrar algo de ustedes que es posible para conectar porque no me sale eso es
We are trying to put this session in the room, so just wait a minute and we will start with the questions.
se ve ahí, y luego si se ve lo que tengas la pantalla que tengas activa, o sea, igual es que
vale.
Okay, so
vamos a quitar aquí a ver si empieza a acoplar este problema. Voy a ver si yo tengo te lo he apagado yo. Aquí no tenemos, ya tenemos apagado, ¿no? Let's try again. No, esto no hay quien lo aguante.
esto se llama.
mejor lo hacemos que lo vea él aquí y ya está, ¿no? Que no se le vea la cara, si se les oye en tu ordenador, quizás.
Ahora no se ve la presentación en la cámara.
Ahora
No
no
se
está
ve.
viendo nada.
Ah, ok. Ah, no se ve la presentación. Vale, entonces es mejor a lo mejor porque
Quizás.
y de hecho se ve como con retraso. Es increíble esto. Pero vamos que pregunten a través del ordenador de Julián.
Me pongo allí para que
No sé que
lo
que lo
veas.
oiga, ¿no? Por lo menos. Que lo vea, quizás.
Modo presentación.
Okay, so the first one should be Fernando, that is the secretary of the committee. So whenever you want, you can
Okay,
speak.
thanks, Julia. So first of all, I would like to congratulate you for your nice work. You really showed in your thesis and in your presentation that you have a deep understanding of a variety of problems and techniques. I was really impressed by your thesis. Well, I would like to congratulate also your advisor. I had the opportunity of talking with you a lot while refereeing the thesis for the department. So I would like to make just a couple of questions. First of all, concerning the second problem, the one of allocation of resources, have you thought about the possibility of having a coefficients in the equation instead of having divergence instead of having the equation, you could have the divergence of A of x gradient u, so that the medium is not homogeneous and there would be an interplay between the resources and the diffusivity of the medium at different points?
Yes, this is a problem, no? Because also with the periodization, yes. Question. So here, so you were having some example, for instance, that a different diffusivity mean here, like
yeah, something that depends on x. So there's more interplay between the m and the a of x.
Yeah, that's a good question. Yes, so I'm not.
Well, in fact, I mean, it's not that I expect you to give me an answer. It's more that to think whether you find it feasible, and in fact, it's a way of suggesting possible lines of future research. Though you have many ideas of how to continue, so probably you don't need many. So.
Yes, I expect that the same probability will be there unless for very pathological choices of mu. So that's a bit of a problem because I don't know if you could even design very pathological mu's for not having this. So first, so I don't know. First, I would try to see if also you can have like this Bang property, like from here, like this maximizer will be also Bang, and also then you can also see there if the blow up of the BB normal. So yeah, I mean.
Okay. Also, for this problem, so you consider a nice domain with a lot of symmetries, and this helps, for example,
yes.
When you want, if you want to periodize things, do you think that you could do things for other more general domains?
Actually, this has been done. So,
fantastic.
So it has been there's a work in which they basically consider radial solutions. They extend it to constants. And then, since they are extended to constants, they can also meet any boundary condition. So this has been extended. So for its I don't remember the authors of this. It's some Korean persons from Korea. They extended this.
Okay. As for the third problem, which I found very interesting, I think it is. I mean, it's there is a lot of novelty in that, but okay, you consider the rectified linear unit.
Yes.
And then you say let's to make things simple, but it seems to me that it's more than making things simple because as you point out, the good thing about this is that you can fix one part and you move the other one.
Yeah.
But then it seems that you suggest that you could do other things, for example, with the sigmoid or the exponential. But okay, I guess that you need to have a fast decay. But even with the fast decay, maybe you are introducing some noise, and maybe you lose
the exact controllability. For example, with the sigmoid, yes, you have the exponential decay to zero. I expect that everything would work the same, but you might not have this exactly, because you would have a bit of a drift given by this tail of the sigmoid. However, by squeezing here, so when considering here a sigmoid, if we consider that we can put here a parameter in front, a and b, and we would be basically going to a heaviside function when we were putting this parameter very big. So this would give this exactly the same, well, even a better behavior, because instead of having something linear here, like in the first plane, that here these arrows are not uniform, we would have the same, basically the same value, like if we squeeze a lot this sigmoid. Also, but the key part essentially is to be able to freeze a part of the domain. So basically that you have a part of the phase plane in which you are not acting even. You can even choose this. So you can choose in which place you are not acting, and you can also choose where you are acting. So this is the key property. Also, you could even here put paraboloids or circles. So you could even imagine like another architecture here, which is essentially a quadratic equation. So here you could freeze a circle and you can move the rest. So here you might have a lot of other phenomenology, but also but here I have been saying inside the sigma, but also
okay. And concerning the first problem, and this is my last question. Okay, so you are considering bistable nonlinearities, yes, and also monostable, but in the monostable you apparently ask the f to be strictly positive between 0 and 1. And yes, then, okay, people, it's quite popular. There are certain nonlinearities that are called combustion nonlinearities, in which you have that f is 0 up to a certain threshold, which is the ignition value, and then you have something that looks monostable. So, okay, can you deal with these ones? I mean, it is a kind of degenerate monostable nonlinearity. Is it very important that f is strictly positive between 0 and 1?
Actually, no. So yeah, this is a very good question. So in that case of the Ignitia type of nonlinearity, so we would have roughly when the state is below theta, like a heat equation.
Yeah.
And below it, we will have some monostable equation. So yes, the thing, mainly the barriers and so on would exist the same. And the thing would be also to try to treat the phase plane in that thing, in that question. So, but also in that case, even in the Ignitia one, I think it's even more simple, because so if you can go to 0, you put just boundary condition theta, and the diffusivity can make you go there, because you don't have anything preventing you. So what happens also with this bistable nonlinearity? So let's go with. I don't know if I put this picture behind. No, okay. So what happens also with this bistable nonlinear, what can happen here when you have here theta, you might have a non-trivial solution here with a boundary value theta that goes below. But this is because it's negative. And so if I try the simplest possible strategy, when I'm 0, I put boundary value theta, I will go and I don't cross this theta, I will attach to this non-trivial solution that has boundary value theta and remain there. Then but in this Ignitia type nonlinearity, this is not there. So you would diffuse directly to theta, and then you would apply some local control argument there.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you, Fernando. So the next one is Professor Yannick Privat. You can ask whenever, you can start whenever you want.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
First of all, I would like to tell you it's it's very well written and it contains profound and innovative results. This shows that you have a wider range of skills in analysis, more precisely in optimal control and control theory, from theory to numerical aspects. So congratulations, Domènec. And I just want to ask you some questions about the extension of your results to systems. So my first question is, I suspect that this is probably very difficult, but do you have any ideas for studying fragmentation phenomena for systems from a theoretical point of view?
Fragmentation for systems. Okay, so basically to consider this equation here with, let's say, some competition between two, or some...
To your mind, what are the main difficulties you need to overcome? What could be done?
Yeah, actually, the thing is that in this kind of systems, many weird things can happen even naturally, you know, like you don't have even these patterns, and you might not even have this the maximum principle. So, for me, it's not that intuitive. What even if there is like I question myself if there you would have this monotonicity, like that you are when you are increasing m0, you are directly increasing the mass you would have. But is this true in that case? When you are having two type of species competing. So I'm even thinking like on the case, like there was also, I think it's also in Australia, like when I was in the Autónoma University of Barcelona, I was taught all these, in which there was a case also in which in Australia they put a lot of pesticide on for controlling the pests, but also they killed the predator, and actually the pests were invading even more. So I am not sure even if you put in a system and you put more resources to one type of to one part of the equation, if you would also have this monotonicity with respect to M naught. And so now if you don't saturate this constraint here, I don't know then even if you would have the bang-bang property.
Not obvious. Maybe I was thinking to systems that can be asymptotically reduced. Typically, you make birth rate or natality rate tend to plus infinity, and in that case, you can reduce some systems to scalar ones. And I don't know, but maybe it is possible to extract from your analysis for scalar system some information on true systems. I don't know.
Yes, this is a very good insight. Yes, because also it will be very so thinking a bit of the analysis you made in this paper here, in which when you have the high diffusivity limit and you prove the bang-bang property there with that, but also with going from the system to a scalar with them. Yeah. So then also to prove this the functionally it's convex when you in the and also yeah.
And I have a similar kind of question, but for scalar systems, do you have some idea for other criteria? So typically you investigated the total size of the population, but do you know if the fragmentation result, even for scalar systems, can be generalized to other large families of cost criteria?
Yes, I mean, this is maybe I think here, like if you would even consider a part of the domain here, you would optimize in a part of the domain, you would also have I think you would have the same thing. So maybe if you have here some heterogeneity here in the functional, I might expect you might have also the same phenomena. Just thinking that, okay, if I am here instead of omega, I'm working in little omega, but the equation is holding a bigger omega, I I expect the same properties to be held. So I don't know if also if we could have here a function which is heterogeneous in X, if is also with still hold like positive function, let's say, and not going to vanishing to 0. And I don't know also like if yeah. So also this if also this has to like this periodization, if there is a way for this to work. So if there is a way like this when we're having this periodization, we're having also that the integral is preserved after this rescaling. If this is also fulfilled, I also expect that there are higher chances that this also can be proven. And I don't know, maybe.
I don't know, but I think it could be a
Yeah. Actually, because it's
I
very.
suspect that in some case you may be able to prove similar kind of results.
Yeah, and also in mathematical ecology it would make a lot of sense to consider not only population, but in the whole domain, but maybe localized in somewhere, or even like in systems, like maybe I want one species to survive more than the other, and.
So typically for functionals that are close in some sense to the total size of population, I suspect that you will be able by asymptotic arguments to similar kind of result, but it would be interesting for larger families. And I have another question related to realistic applications. So typically epidemic propagations. In that case, we have to solve optimal control problems involving general high-dimensional systems on which it's not always reasonable to efficiently apply the standard optimization algorithm. And I am thinking, for instance, of taking into account the heterogeneity between individuals and the regions for the covariant crisis. Do you see a way to use neural networks and, for instance, reinforcement algorithms to numerically solve such kind of problems?
So, for example, having a model like a reaction diffusion equation, but instead of a Laplacian in a network, for instance, no? You are having this, but instead of here the Laplacian, we will consider an interaction of individuals in a large network. And okay.
It's for taking into account, I guess, super spreaders or something like that.
Yes. So actually, the thing is what things can be done analytically, but what can be done numerically, which I think can go in opposite sides. So yes, you could also train try to approximate the value function of the associated value function with reinforcement learning algorithms, or also you could even try to, if you have some knowledge of the problem, so the qualitative knowledge, maybe it can also help to initialize well the value function. So if you know, so the maximizer is bang, so you know a lot about the feedback that you have. So you might have, so you know that you know have information from the gradient of the value function. I don't know if then you can also try to initialize smartly the value function for then applying some reinforcement learning algorithm. But then I don't know, like, if you can also prove any analytical thing from this.
No, I don't think it's reasonable to expect analytical.
But yeah,
my question was really about numerical aspects. And then, do you think it could be possible to use neural networks to get some kind of reduced model which is much simpler to analyze from the optimal control point of view? So,
for instance, doing a reduced model and then studying that model analytically.
Yeah. Typically, a reduced model for super spreaders.
So the thing also that when you're considering neural networks, if you have a system, I can replace this F by a neural network. let's say, or even this whole, like let's say that we're in finite dimensions, and like in this Laplacian is in finite dimensions. I can replace everything of this with a neural network with a certain size. Like I can say, okay, I'm considering like just a shallow neural network with n layers, but then, okay, might have something simpler if I have low number of let's say the weight is low. I can understand. Okay, I have heavisides, combinations of heavisides. I can try to understand this, but when this is going to be very large, when n is very large, I don't know. It's even better to work with the analytical side because you have more knowledge on the system rather than the neural network. Analyze the neural network itself for the approximation. So I would rather work in the analysis side because the neural network we should also have something that has some physics there to be able to actually conjecture what we are going to prove. But if it's an answer of a family of functions that can be very big, then it's very difficult to distinguish. Like, okay, I'm going to try to use a maximum principle. I'm going to use some rescaling, but then we are on, like in these ansatz works for the epidemiologic model, but also works for reduced model for the wave equation that might have radical different behaviors. So then analytically might be even more difficult.
Yes, I agree. Okay, so that's all for me. So congratulations again.
Thank you very much.
Perdona,
And thank you.
se ha dejado de ver la pantalla, entonces lo va a arreglar.
Wait a minute, please.
There's a technical issue to resolve.
Okay, so next one is Professor Lars Grune. So whenever you want, you can ask questions. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
So first of all, I would also like to congratulate you on this thesis. So this is a piece of work. I really enjoyed it. And also your talk was really very well presented. So congratulations on that too. I would like to talk a little bit about the last part, the neural network part, where you did a lot of things, very interesting results. And my first question, we already explained a little bit how the proof works, how these hyperplanes work. In your thesis, you said that this could be extended to other activation functions, which are not of the real type. How would that work then? Because then you don't have this clear hyperplane, so you don't have to shut off the dynamics and so on. How would you extend it?
So, for instance, instead of the ReLU here, we have something positive. Just it might be very weird, but something positive. All the same construction will work. Like if here there's something positive, but very weird. Also, if we are able to localize the place in which we are not acting, so let's say that here, like very far away, we might also have some other behaviors. The whole point is that if we can also put, like we can set, if we can control the region in which we are not acting, and also we have some properties in the part where we are acting. So we can also, like since the whole point will be in a complex set, we can also, as long as I can live almost without moving a part of this set and move the others in a coherent way. So what I don't know if, for instance, if you have here like changing sign, if this can also work, because like the proof will not I think that as it is now, it cannot work if you have here some. Sorry, I have to go downwards. So if this could also work, because if this is changing sign, like here, what I said before is like I roughly don't care what is the length of these arrows, but I do care about the sign of these arrows. So if these arrows are changing sign, I cannot do the. I would have to think about how could maybe should fit which it would be maybe very adapted, but I don't know if there is an advantage of that. So with an oscillating function here, because maybe I could add to make every point coincide with a part that is positive. So I'm thinking on a sign. So if I have here instead of in the ReLU, I have 0 and a sign function. So I could even try to think in a way that all the points are in the positive part, so everything works like at a certain different. So, but I think it would be adapting, but I don't know if there is also would be any practical advantage of considering 0 sign. I mean, I'm not aware of this, if there would be any practical advantage, but maybe the proof could even be adapted for this kind of cases.
Okay, thank you very much. I lost connection for a while, but I think I got the main message, so that's fine. So, let me go to another question. So this what you did, and this whole neural OEE business, this applies to this so-called resonance. So how flexible are these? Are they like as flexible as general feed-forward networks, or is it the subclass that can be used for some purposes?
They were introduced here in this resonance. So and they also done for image processing, but also, I mean, I don't have a deep understanding when it's better to use this ResNet to adjust the deep neural network combination of layers. So like what is this dumping introducing? So I don't have the knowledge for answering this. So basically the main point here was that since we can have this dynamical OD representation, it's easy for us to work on that, and also even to represent it as movements in as transport-driven equations and work even in a PDE level. But I don't know, like in the practice, like what is the advantage of this ResNet with respect to just a multi-layer perceptron or like here, because here we are requiring a lot of layers. So, and also the problems I have been speaking about, or the main intuition behind the problems I'm speaking about are very low dimension. So where you have points in a Euclidean space that we imagine like to be in a low dimension. Like when we construct it, I mean, I have in mind low dimension, but things change dramatically when you go to high dimensions. So because typically, we think the connection is lost.
No,
Okay. So things change dramatically when you go to high dimensions, because typically it's this thing that if you have in low dimensions, you have a small square inside the ball, and it's all the squares inside the ball. But when you are going this in high dimensions, the edges of this square will cross the ball, even if the square has the site of epsilon and the ball is radius 1. So this in high dimension, these intuitions are not the same. Also, and also I think it has to play a role, this high dimensionality with the neural networks, because here, I mean, I have been going only with intuition, low dimension intuition. So also, I wanted to show here. So some of the, I don't know where it's this. Yes, so here some of the estimates that I can have from the control depend on the dimension, but they depend very badly on the dimension. So if you see, so this is the control estimates for an approximation, but so if the dimension D is very big, so then you can these control norms are also very big, which also I don't know if this should be the case. It's also because, as I said before, maybe points are typically more spread. You will not need maybe that much effort to move them, but and there it's maybe where neural networks might overcome other methods that we knew, like approximation of function by Fourier series. But I don't have the knowledge to actually know. It's a guess. It's not actually that I know how.
That would have actually been my next question. So whether these norm bounds are somehow connected to difficulties in standard training methods. So if your norm is big, does that mean that this network is also difficult to train by usual, say, stochastic gradient?
If these norms are big, also they might create. So basically, this what I showed here is basically when I try to approximate some this type of functionals and this type of characteristic functions. So for instance, if I have a function whose perimeter is blowing up, or we have here a fractal, so and you want to approximate it very well, you have to basically make a lot of movements. So all the iterations I have in these induction processes and all this do depend on how badly the points are. So if I'm taking samples of this Mandelbrot set, if I'm taking samples of this checkerboard, the number of iterations I would have to do, it changes a lot. So this is this fractal dimension D I wrote here in the exponents. So, but also in the training, I also don't know, because like this is a constructions that are made by hand. So it's not that I will, like the optimal control problems would do the same, because if I have an optimal, like imagine like in this case, maybe here, yes, here. So if I want to move like these points here, like the strategy suggests that you do one by one, but the algorithms are never going to do that. Algorithms are going to move. If they see a cluster, they will move it all the way. They will consider a hyperplane somewhere to cut this cluster and move it all the way in one. So they would treat maybe these 3 points as one. So all of these things also is a way to say that even the estimates I have, they depend on the dimension, but I don't have this dependence on how, like the only mixture, the only thing I have here to say how badly they are mixed is about this fractal dimension, in which I basically say like what happens if the points are very badly mixed here, that you would need a lot of precisions. But if I'm taking a sample, I am leaving a margin of error epsilon, and you run an optimal control algorithm, maybe, I don't know, maybe it will be quite easy to separate. So because actually I'm working in a very strong setting, like to have like to move all the points where I want. So for the strategy, I construct it by hand. I put it. I don't consider clusters. So you have a lot of dependencies that maybe an optimal control algorithm will not care.
Okay, my last question concerns this transport interpretation of your method. You very nice. This is actually out of personal interest, because we ran into some problems when we did try to do similar things. You really very nicely showed that the Wasserstein distance, W1 distance, is the right concept, because otherwise you do not, support doesn't overlap, you do not make any LP moment, doesn't work anymore. But are you aware of optimal control methods which use the Wasserstein distance in the objective? Is that possible?
I would actually suggest you a book of Gabriel Freire and Marco Couturi, which is basically a computational optimal transport.
Okay.
So there they discuss a lot of algorithms, and also mainly first in optimal transporting, not in the dynamic setting, but also they have some chapters, I think at the middle end of the book, of this Benamou-Renier formulation, in which they can characterize the optimal transport through, where it is this? Here. They construct, so they basically characterize the Wasserstein to distance from the minimal kinetic energy you need to move one distribution to another, essentially, with a transport equation. So they have a continuous formulation for doing that. But I mean, I would suggest you to look at the book, because there they have all these transport computational methods for computing Wasserstein distances and optimal transport.
Great, wonderful. So also learned something. Very good. Thank you very much. I'm happy with the answers, and congratulations again.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. So, sorry, next one is Professor Luis Alceda. You can start with your questions if you want.
Thank you very much. Do you hear me clearly?
Yes.
Okay. Hello, Domènec. Today speaking Catalan. The other members of the jury, they have already said some things about the quality of your work that I share completely. completely, so I will not repeat to save time. Simply, I want to emphasize one thing that I have liked, especially in your memory, in the PhD thesis, which is a thing that with time I'm starting to appreciate more and more, which is the fact to put together tools, methods, and ideas from different angles. So I have found in your thesis, say motivation and problems that they come from applications, but then you are using methods from dynamical systems, from differential equations, partial differential equations, control theory, say machine learning and other tools. And with the time I'm liking more and more such things because according to my experience, when you are able to mix ideas from different fields, although sometimes they are a little bit close, then good ideas appear. And you are able to solve problems that with this say curiosity or this looking around different techniques, they are not possible to solve. So I will not talk about the amount of work that is done here because it has already done, but I wanted to emphasize this. So I congratulate you for this fact. Normally, you find such kind of things in people which are older than you, and the fact that you at your age have been able to do this for me, I like it very much. Now going to questions. I have one curiosity question and then two questions on the memory. Maybe I should say something. Is that I had a lot of questions that, while reading the memory, that they have been solved, most of them or all of them, in the final part, where you this discussion about proposals about things to do and kind of future work. And so I have find this very interesting. This is the first time that I see such a thing in a PhD thesis, and I like it very much. And this saves a lot of work asking questions about what else it can be. So I like this very much. Maybe my main question that I commented to the jury before is how you are going to be able to prepare the defense of the PhD thesis, because there is a lot of material and you did it very, very well. I think that you have chosen the right things. Okay. So let's go to the questions. My first question is a curiosity question, which is the tools you are using for simulation, for computation. So you are using some software, or you are doing the programs yourself in C or I don't know.
So first, we're working mostly in MATLAB. There's something, but most of here I've shown are done in MATLAB. I also use a lot of gradients. I do them by hand, but I also use in parts IP-opt. I don't know if you know it, but for instance, for let's say for the simulations here, so you can I compute them also the gradients, the joins, and I do it by hand, but also at certain parts where I have to compute the best perturbation, I can use IP-opt for that. So because here you express the gradient as the integral of the function of the state, the join, and the perturbation, and then you want to apply a gradient, but then I'll try to find the best perturbation. Then I also use sometimes these IP-opt methods in IP-opt algorithm there. So I basically combine two things. So I combine a lot IP-opt with also gradients by join by hand.
Okay, thank you. This was curiosity thing. So the first question I wanted to ask is about the staircase method, which I have found very interesting, your description. My concern is possible extensions of the staircase method to approximate or to control more complicated objects. So you are thinking essentially about stationary solutions. They are stable rho. In dynamical systems, we often compute very complicated invariant objects, higher dimensional, but here the dimension in this question is not important. What is important is very complicated objects. For instance, in some of the things I have done, we are computing objects where they are so weird that you cannot express them in an easy way. You have to use wavelets, for instance, to express those objects because they are very difficult. So it's possible to extend to reduce, say, the regularity of the whole staircase method to approximate objects with very, very, very low regularity, with very low regularity, even not in the sense of Holder, but something that they are more complicated than Holder spaces.
So you are saying objects like invariant regions or omega limits?
For instance, very complicated ones. I am thinking, for instance, in say, one-dimensional attractor that lives in the circle.
Like a Cantor set.
That I have found. Yes, that it's a function of the circle that is discontinuous at every point. Things like this, which is not continuous. It's upper semi-continuous. It's not in any Holder space. This function. Do you think that this could be extended to such things?
So, and also, I need also more information on this because now, how is this object linked to your dynamics? Because here, like the steady states are linked in the dynamics in the sense that the time evolution is zero there. So, and you are moving along it. So, like, are these invariant objects also invariant in the sense that when you apply the dynamical system there, it's not moving? So, they're invariant?
Yes, they are.
And do you have
they are invariant in the strongest possible sense that you can imagine.
So, yeah, so then here, but also your dynamics doesn't require regularity. So I mean that your dynamics you can have these weird objects there taking the role of.
The surprise here is that the dynamics is regular. Such things can appear in highly regular dynamics. This is discrete dynamics. This is not differential equation, but it's highly regular. But it can have very nasty invariant objects.
So like these maps of the logistic equation in which you are basically doing iterates of these and you have these renormalizations, bifurcation of the periods and...
quasi-periodic perturbations.
So now here you would like to add some control in the discrete dynamical system.
Yeah.
So
this would be the idea. Whether you think that this is possible.
Yes. I think
this would have very strong applications.
Yes, the thing also is the controllability aspect. So here, I mean, this is in this work here. So you need to construct the path. So this you could do it like in your setting of your discrete dynamical system. You can put some different control functions there, and you would have a map from the control functions to these invariant sets, even if they are very weird. So, but then also what you need is a way to transition from one to the other. So, and this can be very problematic in your case for the expected chaotic behavior of the discrete dynamical system. So, because here we have this local controllability that can go from one to another, so which is a very strong property. But also, one thing could be to try to see if there is a local controllability in the discrete dynamical system, or also if there is a way of a stabilization and kick out the chaotic behavior for a while. For instance, I am in a configuration which can have some fractional structure. So now I can try to add some feedback or add some part in the dynamical system so that I can stabilize it in a region where I know that when I apply another feedback, sorry, I'm gonna explain that. So we have here one configuration. This gamma 0 is our initial configuration that can be a fractal for a certain control A in our discrete dynamical system. So we have another configuration for the discrete dynamical system, which is also another Cantor very strange set with another A. So, but in the middle, we can also study for this second dynamical second attractor what are the conditions to converge to this attractor. So in which parts or in which sets are converging to this attractor. So can I go to this state? So from the first configuration, that's maybe very strange, a fractal one, can I add a feedback, move the state to a region that would be the region of attraction of the second attractor, and this can also be done iteratively. But also this you would have also to be, so the thing that the lacking thing would have the control of the convergence to this object, because once I'm moving out, so then I will maybe need a lot of iterations in the discrete dynamical system to be very close, and then there might be some things to take into account, and so how epsilon close you are to this strange attractor for then when I change, ensure I can do everything well. But I think yes, that this principle is also applied not only in PDEs but also in nonlinear dynamical systems. So this is also called. There is one paper here I didn't mention that basically they do this thing of stabilization. It's by Coron and Fela. 2005, if I remember well. So that basically they do a similar strategy without exactly controlling, rather stabilizing around the path. But also you don't need even to stabilize around the path. You can go you only need the conditions to converge to this state. If I know, so since in your case you don't have constraints, so if you know from which places you are converging to your target state, if I can go from your state to this region and then converge naturally to this other state, I could apply this argument. So, but this also it requires you a lot of knowledge of the basically. So when I'm putting a control or the feedback, this feedback control there, what are these strange attractors?
So the message is that you see dynamical difficulties more than analytical difficulties, if I understood.
Yes. Also, like I'm even thinking like a bit like if it's basically the logistic map, for instance. So because in the logistic equation, yes, you could also basically take out the periods. So I could, if I can add something in the constant k. So if I have ku 1 minus u, and this k is basically what you give you the transition from periods and how it's called this Sierpinski order, right? So if I can go down this Sierpinski order and basically take out the chaos and go to some, let's say, 8 periodic cycle, and then from this 8 periodic cycle, I know I can go to some state that it's particularly interesting for going to another one. So I really think that it's this is the principal idea will apply for sure.
Perfect, thank you. So my next question is about the last part, about the neural networks part. I have to say that I like very much this part, because there is a kind of profusion of people working in neural networks and people that they are not aware that in fact what they are doing is approximation theory, and they even do not know the universal approximation theorem. So I was very happy to see that you were taking care of such things. I appreciate your very rigorous contribution to the area, showing also even some of our colleagues would like to read what you did, because people think, since there is people who do very bad use of neural networks, people think that all neural networks they are not understood and they are something mysterious. So you have shown rigorously that you can, or you have shown that you can do rigorous things with neural networks. So I was very happy about this. But there is something that I did not understand well, which is the topology of the neural networks you are using. What I understood, but I might be wrong here, is that you are using very simple neural networks, and the complications they come from the models, from the differential equations you are using, and this is what it determines the feature of the neural networks. Also, what I understood, but I might be wrong here again, is that your classification problem, that I would, if I understood, is a sequential classification problem, and you are using different features or different differential equations to sequentially do this classification. I would like some clarification on this, and if what I said is right, then my biggest question here is whether you could do all the tasks, all the classification steps at once using more complicated neural networks. Definitively, more complicated neural networks would mean more complicated proofs. To prove things, it's a good strategy, very good strategy what you did. But now I am thinking in applications, in computational efficiency or performance of the networks. Okay,
so first thing is that, one thing is the approximation, but I think that the main challenge is also is somewhere, so it's somewhere on another side also, that so you can have something that approximates, but how can we know, I will be more rigorous, how can we know, how can we come back? So we have samples of a function. So we have here samples of a function, and we run essentially in practice an optimization algorithm. So we basically optimize among the parameters, and we find our parameters, and now we say we have found a map. But this map has been computed with finite number of samples. How do we know? Do we have an estimate, or there's a way to estimate how close we are to our characteristic function that we have sampled without knowing which function it is? So this is a thing that I have not addressed, and I think that is basically one of the most important things to address. So to know this. So it's basically going back to statistics, no? It's like you have a finite number of data, and now you want to know how close you are to something, to the object. So here is the thing: when we run the optimization algorithm, how close we are after our output, how close it is to this characteristic function. How can we prove it without knowing that we have this A? So that without having A. So this is, I think, one of the first most important things to take care about, which is actually more practical. To say, for example, which number of n, how many samples should I take to guarantee that I am in some sense close to this A? So this is a first thing. So second thing, yes, essentially yes, there are different dynamical ODEs, because I am taking like the controls are piecewise constant. But essentially, in our interpretation, for us, this is just a control. So our W, A, and B are free to choose. It's like in the same philosophy that in the first part, where we were free. Well, I mean, I'll get just the question here. Yeah, we're free to choose the boundary condition. So our boundary condition was free to choose, but also this carries different PD dynamics there. If I put 0 or if I put 1, you can consider there are two different dynamical systems. One can go to some attractor that is a barrier. The other one can go to the constant. You might even have, so if you put here something periodic, maybe you can even have some periodic behavior. But so you can, when you have control, you are considering control in the equation. You are not considering a unique equation. There are several equations. You are considering a lot of equations at the same time. And also it's the same thing here. So when I'm here, I'm putting certain specific controls that give me rise to different type of differential equations. So, but it all can be summarized, all these different differential equations in this control form, in this control form. So I think that this question is more about the perspective of our field in control, or rather than the perspective purely dynamical systems. That I'm using different dynamical systems, but all of them are merged in a control formulation. So the next question that was regarding how to use this with more complicated architectures. Yes, and also here, so for instance, like one thing also that would be also going to maybe to in discrete might be even maybe easier to think. But so when I was thinking like the continuous modeling for varying layers there, and how can we prove things there? So this is a thing I don't know how to prove these things. So I have a friend who have worked in these modelings, but I don't know how to prove these proofs in these cases. So the thing is, how can in the discrete setting you might even have a way to understand these dynamical systems up to here. So here you have already a discrete dynamical system. So and you can have several of them. So you might, as you were saying, like you can have different choices of these parameters here, and you can consider different discrete dynamical systems there. And also here it's way easier to have different type of varying dimensions. Also here you could also, when you put the different topologies, so I think it would boil down on considering more restrictive, to put the specific structures on this architecture here. And I think that this in way of the formulation, and maybe for in the technical it's even easier and more appropriate to do it in a discrete dynamical setting.
Can you hear us, Luis? No.
I think he's muted.
Yeah.
I was muted, but I lost your sound, I think.
Okay.
At the end. Yeah.
Okay. So I was saying that essentially you could, when you can consider different topologies or different varying dimensions and everything, I think it would be wiser to start at the discrete model, not at the continuous one. So some architectures like this, and where here you can choose different parameters to have, as you were saying, different type of discrete dynamical systems and changing from one to another. So, or also seen as a control formulation. So for instance, if one layer you don't want this ResNet type here, you put at a control here in front, a parameter that could be 0, 1, depending if one layer you want the ResNet or to change into a shallow neural network when you are changing from layer to layer. And I think that actually in the discrete setting would be even better. So also there are one thing that in differential equations that there is sometimes we have a course. We have a workhorse in the sense that we cannot so in one dimension if there are 2 points here, we cannot change the order of them. So but with the same control, because we have the same control, if they would cross at the same point by the uniqueness of the ODE, they would follow the same. So it's not, you can never make 2 points swap. But in discrete dynamical systems you can do that. So in the sense that is in this paradigm, I think that the discrete dynamical systems can be more powerful than the continuous for proving certain properties.
Okay, thank you. This is what I thought, although I asked the question in a a different way, but thank you very much. So I'm very happy with the answer of the questions, and congratulations again.
Okay, thank you very much, Luis. So I'm the last asking questions. I join the congratulations to you, Domènec, and also to your supervisor. And also I think that the presentation was very good and things were more clear thanks to this. Most of the questions I had been already answered since I am the last one, but I still have very short and concrete questions that I'm going to ask you. Most of them are just curiosity. I have one question here on the second chapter about this inequality here. Have you checked, for example, in the 1D case that this is a sharp inequality? Maybe you can do it.
No, I haven't checked it. And also I found it very interesting when I found it, because you forget about the PD actually here. Mm-hmm. So you see actually just seeing that F is bistable, mm-hmm. and you have a relationship between pi and this and these primitives. So it seems that something that could go in a first grad exam, and they and screw everyone, no?
Yeah. Okay. Okay, thank you. And also, well, I had already some that you have already answered all this. So here, for this numerical example on page 117, you say here that this function zeta is piecewise constant, but I think this should be piecewise linear, I guess, because you have here this Laplacian that is the finite difference Laplacian, or if you write this in terms of finite elements method, this would be a linear finite element approximation. So I guess your nouns are the nodal values. So
yes.
Then you have a linear piecewise function instead of a constant function in the interval, or not.
So
I don't know how you can have this theta h constant at any interval and then consider this discrete Laplacian. In general, you have a piecewise linear function, and then you consider the
so this is a final dimensional everything. So I was considering only the nodes and the matrix.
If you have the nodes, you have a piecewise linear, not a piecewise constant, I guess. Okay. So it's not constant over the interval. You have the nodal value, so this is piecewise linear. And the last one is just curiosity. Here to say. Is in the last part of the stations, you talk about the Nash equilibria, and you say this sentence that I was curious about this. You say, one can ensure that the strategies associated with the fixed point are Nash equilibrium if the algorithm converges.
This is I have no clue.
I'm not sure it's so easy to prove that if the algorithm converges, then the limit is the Nash equilibrium.
If the algorithm is converging, if this converges, then by definition it's a Nash equilibrium. The thing is that the problem is that the convergence, because one is optimal.
Why by definition is the Nash equilibrium? Maybe it's an epsilon Nash equilibrium or something.
Convergence in the
Yeah, it's not so.
Convergence not in the tolerance thing. Not fixing the tolerance or fixing.
I mean that the analytical proof and I don't know, the theoretical proof of this, I think is not so easy. Probably you have to prove that for any fixed tolerance, then you have this inequality with a minus epsilon here or something. And even the definition of convergence is not so clear. I mean, I was surprised about the sentence that I think there are not much stuff about this type of convergence proof, and I was surprised about the.
So first, I didn't know when I ran the algorithm, I didn't know if the algorithm was converging for this Nash equilibrium. So I basically said, how would you find finding a fixed point of this? If this fixed point exists, but here when I'm writing this, I'm thinking on the level of if everything continues and convergence, like one is optimum, like at infinity. So at the computer level, this you don't have it. So you would, as you say, So you would find a tolerance, as I think I mentioned it here. Yes. Oh, yes. So this is a diagonal convergence, but also in the numerical simulations, when I do, I fix a tolerance, and then I basically stop the algorithm. But then I of course I don't know if this but it's also in the other simulations when it's I find local minima, but also this local minima or also admit in the numerical. So I don't know if then when you pass to the continuous, there will be something.
I understand, but just here in this complete problem with mass equilibrium, I think that things are more complicated than this. But it was just curiosity. Of course, you have enough material probably in this thesis for 2 or 3, so it was just a comment.
And also, I don't know if do you know like some other I know results of potential games in which you can this algorithm converges like theoretically. But also, I don't know, like other proofs in which this algorithm actually it's going to converge or not. It's not going to. So even if the Nash equilibrium exists for the problem, how can I know that this is going to converge? So I mean, I only know for the potential gain thing, but all the others I am not aware.
Okay. Okay. So thank you very much. So. Next part is difficult to do in this hybrid mode, but I have to ask if any person or in this room or in the YouTube has any question, any doctor, sorry, has any question to do to Domènec. In case any people is in YouTube and wants to ask something, he could write in the chat that he wants to ask, and if not, we should conclude this part of the thesis with this. With this. So, no sé si tenéis conectados.
Yo lo tengo conectado y no aparece que nadie pregunte. So no questions in YouTube and in the audience here. So
if there is no question, I again give my congratulations to Domènec and his supervisor, and we now finish and continue with all you, with the committee. Fernando and me, we are going to discuss.
¿Nos vamos a tu
Sí, y después hay que volver o ya está.
Bueno, después hay que venir a decirle si lo hemos aprobado o lo hemos pedido.
Y esto como...
Cuando terminemos, venimos y decimos...
Okay, and then we will go back and say if everything went well, and that's all.
Si ahora vamos a tu... Te quedas aquí a esperar.
Ya. Ahora solo que vengamos y veremos si aprobamos, ¿no? O sea que sí, pues,
Why is next Wednesday?
because they do this every Wednesday.
Oh, I see.
This is something they do in la escuela de doctorado.
Oh, I see. It's
They
not,
meet there, so we have to send
yeah.
our votes
As
for
in
the cum
secret.
laude and for the
Yeah.
extraordinary award
Yeah,
secretly.
yeah, I see.
And then next Wednesday they open the one concerning the cum
I
laude
see.
secretly, and they check that
Yeah,
well the 5 of us voted for
yeah.
it.
I
And
see.
if this is the case, they tell you, okay, you got it.
Yeah.
So
But this is independent of the PhD degree, right?
no, you've got your PhD degree with sobresaliente.
Yeah, okay.
And then I think this is done in September or something like this. At some point they will see how many theses
Yeah,
were defended here, and if they reach a certain number, they
yeah,
one or two extraordinary awards are awarded.
yeah.
But there will be a committee deciding among the theses that the juries nominated to be considered for this.
Okay.
So we have to vote also in secrecy, but they will not open the envelope, not the envelope, they open a PDF that we send to them.
Okay.
This will be done at some point, and if this is the case, your thesis will be considered.
Okay, very good.
Okay.
I would like to thank you. Also, thank you for revising, to be all the time there, all the time spent here, also in Madrid and online. So I would like to thank you, Enrique, for also for your view, for your scientific view.
Y por apretar los tornillos, ¿no?
Yes, yes, but the necessary thing. Also, your view for simplicity, to think that mathematics is not only to solve a problem, but also to explain it in the simplest possible way. And it's the thing I will try to follow.
Very good. I'm sure you will do very, very well. Excellent. So for me, it was a great honor and a great pleasure. So, yeah, I hope we can continue having many opportunities to collaborate in the future.
And also to thank you also for coming here. Also to thank if there is someone in the audience still.
Yeah, probably they are there. Okay, maybe if you want to talk to them, maybe we can check the Jitsi. Maybe if you want to say something to the jury.
I don't know who's there, but so like
Yeah, we can.
Greece for
You can interact with them through. Okay, sí, me acuerdo de la clave de mi ordenador, claro. Voy a hacer que sí. Joder, ¿no? Okay, so let's check whether they are here. It should be here. Let's see. This one. Them. There's no one. There's no one. They already left. Okay. So if you want to, si les quieres decir algo, ya falta que hablemos en inglés, les escribes y les agradeces o lo que sea. Pero ya. Ah, no, mira. Okay. So Lars is here. Yeah. So probably they are looking through YouTube, and so if you want to speak with.
I think I also thank you all the jury for your time, and also I also wanted to thank my colleagues in the team. Also, I give to Greece for the time we spent with Morian, Carlos, Tipo, Dognam, all the people I will be.
Sorry, let me stop this one.
Thank you all the jury for your time, and also
This is kind of crazy.
con eco.
Now this will repeat again. So
And it will continue forever. You know, there's some kind of delay and there's something weird here.
You know,
So.
Domènec is expert in echo, so
recursive one. Now the echo will be.
So let's do this. I'll stop the sound, my sound. I'll stop my sound.
Yeah. Okay.
Stop YouTube sound. Hace efecto mercadillo, ¿no? Efecto foco.
This is a mess.
Yo aquí he apagado. Yo creo que hay que hablar solo.
Thank you all for your time and have a nice day.
Okay, so thanks a lot, and we apologize for the technical inconveniences. Okay, we are not used to these hybrid things, so next time we'll do better.
Yeah.
See you.